Hello, everybody. It's the Lawn Gnome, and welcome to a sit-down special on day 373 of lockdown. Obviously, I'm kidding. I have no idea what day or time it is anymore because of all of this, but I am so happy that we are here today, even though we already had a Sunday sit-down in the month of April, and we're going to have a very good one in the month of May. I said, with everything that has been going on, one of the few things that I have noticed in the community, whether it's the booktube community, the food community, the ASMR community even, we're not really seeing many people actually sitting down either by their individual selves or with other members of the community, really talking about the experiences that we're dealing with right now in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I decided, why not do a sit-down special with some people who are definitely willing to discuss a whole bunch of things that have been going on in the last couple of weeks. So this is actually also going to be a 2-hour long episode, because when you got more than one guest here, you gotta leave more time because everybody's got something to say, and I wanna make sure that everybody that has something on their mind gets their thoughts and feelings out, because that's what we do here on Sit Down. So I am so thankful to have two fantastic guests joining me today. I'm also very happy to know that they are also smaller members in the community, because I'm hoping that this will help get their voices a little bit louder. So first I want to introduce one of the inspirational people that actually gave me the thought to actually put this together, because she has been a very active person in the community during this pandemic, and that is Gabby from GABBYABOOKS. Good morning, Gabby. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really excited to get to chat with both of you.
Yeah, and I'm just very excited to actually return the favor in kind, because you had me on your channel with a couple of collabs. So this really warms my heart to know that I was actually able to express my gratitude in return. And one of the newest voices in the community, who is, I will say, one of the happiest rays of sunshine that I have seen, especially during this point in time. And that is Joanne from Joannotations, who is over in the UK. So good afternoon to you, Joanne, and thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hi, no, thank you for having me. And those comments are so sweet, thank you.
Well, while Gabby was the inspiration for me to do a lot more collaborations with other YouTubers, it was actually you who inspired me to bring this specific topic up, because you were one of the few people that actually made one of your videos specifically about how you had been dealing with COVID-19 pandemic, and also trying to do a little bit of a read along with that. So when I saw you doing that, you saw my comment, I said, we got to do something like this, because I think it's something that many members of the community would like to actually see happen here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, thank you. No, I'm glad you saw it as well. It's a strange one, because a lot of people don't want to talk about it, but at the same time, it's one of those things that you need to talk about it, because otherwise you're ignoring it. If you lock something away in a box, it's just going to get bigger and bigger and more painful. So you've got to talk about it, and it's got to be that open conversation, just like everything in life. So thank you for having me.
Oh, please. It's my absolute pleasure to have you and Gabby as well. So just in case any of you out there who are watching are new to how the sit-down format actually works, I have 7 questions, as always, and we're basically going to get those questions out in the open. We're going to hear everybody's interpretation of how they would answer it. And the more important thing is, we're going to have conversations sprout out, and wherever the conversation goes, that's the mystery, but that's what makes this all the more fun. So I always like to start at the beginning when it comes to every topic that I bring to the table. So I want my viewers, if they've never seen the both of you before, I'd like you both to talk a little bit about the beginnings of your channel and a little bit about what you both cover. And if you want, because the most important thing is you can be as generic or as specific as you want, but maybe you might want to give your audience a taste if there might be something new that you have in the works. So Gabby, let's start with you.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Gabby and my channel name is GABBYABOOks, as Steve mentioned. So as you can tell from the name of my channel, I mainly review and discuss young adult novels, although I try to branch out because as a lot of people sometimes experience in the community, book slumps, I find that I haven't been reading as much as I've liked, and so I'll talk about movies that I'm watching or TV shows that I've gotten into recently. I'll talk about music that I'm listening to. It sort of just depends on where my mood is at creatively and where my inspiration strikes. As for new videos that I have coming up, I'm making a video for Teacher Appreciation Week because education for me is something that's really important. And so I know there's a lot of teachers that are sort of struggling during this time period because they're having to adapt to a whole new online learning format. And so I wanted to make a video recognizing and acknowledging them. And then I'm also a big fan of Marvel. I had Steve on for a Marvel collaboration, and so I'm going to be making a video about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because the new 7th season is going to be coming out at the end of May, and so I wanted to make a video talking about that. Yeah, but like I said, I pretty much cover like a wide variety of content on my channel, although the focus is mainly young adult novels. So it's kind of just up to you as a viewer to scroll through, see what interests you, and I'm always looking for suggestions of things that I should watch or things that I should cover. So I'm open to new ideas and new things. I really don't limit my content because I want to be able to talk about as much as possible in terms of where my interests lie. I don't want to be limited to just one thing.
That's great. First of all, two things. I also want to say that the Marvel stuff that you were doing was actually another inspirational thing for me to do a couple of DC Comics related videos, because when all this Marvel stuff that has been coming out, I was basically saying to some of my fellow community members, I think more people need to talk about DC Comics as well. So once again, thank you. And I also want to say thank you so much for saying what you were saying about Teacher Appreciation Day. As someone who actually works for an independent college and as the husband of a middle school history teacher, I appreciate anybody out there who praises education or are people in the field themselves. There are certain political figures who I may not agree with, but whenever one of them ever says that teachers need to be paid more, I am on that boat 100%, because I truthfully believe that teachers are grossly underappreciated. And as I see how my wife goes throughout her days and some of the things that she tells me when she comes home from work, I still don't understand why she doesn't make more money than me. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I think that educators really need to be praised more often than just having one day or one week. That's my attitude about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so how about you, Joanne? Let's learn a little bit more about you, especially because you are a very fresh face to the community.
Yes, that's right. So I only started my channel, which my name's Joanne, or Jo if you prefer, and I'm from the channel Joannotations. I started my channel about 6 months ago, about October time last year. So yes, I am still very new. The reason I started my channel, I love books. I love books of all different genres, all different kinds. My main genre is really historical fiction. I do love young adult as well, so I do love Gabby's content as well. But it's just not my favorite. So my favorite mainly is historical fiction, but I do talk about, just like Gabby, all different books on my channel, whatever I'm reading at the moment. Anything that inspires me or anything that I'd like to read, that really is around my content. About things that are coming up, I have just videoed, actually, I've just filmed, I've not edited it yet, so it will be up soon, is the, oh my gosh, I forgot what it's called.
Oh no, the train of thought has been derailed.
It's called, so the Book to Net Gives Back, and basically it's a kind of book tag that Rachel Marie just created, and it's about giving back during the COVID-19 period. So it's very relevant for what we're talking about at the moment. So really it's just about what the book to net and what the booktube and Instagram and book Twitter community do, and it's about us giving back to the COVID-19. So it's very interesting. I watched it. What I've also been doing on my channel is I've been doing a Friday night quiz.
Yeah, I saw that.
Friday. Yeah, you got involved in one of them, didn't you? And you liked it. Yeah, so I've been doing a Friday night quiz, and that's now finished. So that's completed. And that on Friday, which was last night, I was a little bit sad. I was a little bit, oh, what am I going to do now? Because I've been spending so much time doing this quiz. Then Rachel Marie's video came up and I was like, this is perfect. I really want to get involved. So that's what's coming up for me at the moment. But, you know, also your normal content around book hauls and wrap-ups and all those kinds of things. Like Gabby said, just go check out the channel and you can have a look for yourself what's on there.
Absolutely. That's always the best thing, because it's the famous line, you know, if you really want to believe it, you got to see it. That's how it goes. So I have been saying a specific thing this year. I have officially dubbed myself the old fart in the room. And that's just because I am Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome, but if you have been subscribed to me for many months or years, you obviously know who I am at this point in time. But I have actually been doing YouTube content for 10 years, and it has been such an incredible experience to see how this platform has evolved. But what's also very nice is to actually take a look back at what I have done for the last 10 years as a content creator and really see myself evolve as well. I started out just reviewing new movies that I had seen in theaters, and throughout the years I have really tried to branch out, not just for the sake of trying to get connected with other community members, but also to really branch out my own ideas and also my own interests and hobbies. I decided at one point in time, even though I was just reviewing more movies, I was like, well, what if I dedicate one video a month to reviewing a Disney film? What if I decide to review an older movie that I've never seen in my life before? Or what about a movie that I might have missed in theaters? So I was starting to develop a lot of these different themes. But when I discovered the BookTube community, this was a very interesting time in my life because of the fact that I was in the middle of getting my master's degree. I was reading before, but when I was focusing on my studies, I really didn't read. So when I was officially done, I was ready to go out there and read a lot more. But the problem was I didn't know what was good out there. I mean, I think the last books that I read before I went to grad school was The Hunger Games and the Stieg Larsson Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series, because those were the books that I knew were the it books at the time. But I didn't know what anything else that was out there, rather than just books that I knew that I had in my collection that I never picked up and still had to read. So when I discovered the BookTube community, that was when I was really starting to learn a lot more about what was out there, especially in YA. That was when I heard about Marissa Meyer, and she is now one of my favorite authors. I love the Lunar Chronicles. I'm rereading that right now. I adore the Renegade Saga. I think that that is such a fantastic trilogy of books. And also around this time, this was when my wife actually came into my life, so she was introducing me to a whole bunch of books as well. Like, I had no idea that there was a series of books that crossbred William Shakespeare and Star Wars. And that is some of the funniest literature I've ever read. I highly recommend William Shakespeare's Star Wars. I even have episode 9, which is called The Merry Tale of Skywalker, coming to bookstores in July. So I am so excited to finish that up. But yeah, and discovering the beauty of collaborations. That is definitely one of my favorite things to do here, because you can be as broad or as specific as you want. And that's why I like doing this specific kind, because I can bring any topic to the conversation, whether it's fun or whether it's serious. And just being able to work with more people, discover new channels, let people know that there's someone out there that's not just willing to watch, but someone that's willing to help you move forward. Gabby knows this because she got many comments from me saying that I was willing to offer advice or feedback. Joanne, I believe I did the same to you, because I just want to see good people in the community continue to do good things. It's not just about me, it's about everybody. I like this community. I want it to continue being a great place. And, you know, we all may not do this forever. We also want to make sure that when the day comes to pass the torch on, we want to make sure the people that were doing that stuff were just as great as we were. You know, that's basically what I want out of this whole experience. And that was basically my beginnings and where I am now. So let's get into the second question. And this is where things are going to get a little bit interesting. And that is, what were your first thoughts when you first heard about the COVID-19 disease floating somewhere out there? What were your thoughts in regards to when you heard things that were happening in current events and the fact that things might possibly change and things were starting to become a little bit more serious as the days moved forward? Joanne, let's start with you.
Sure. So I work, I live in Leeds, which is north of England. So I work in Leeds city centre. So that's where I was working at the time when I first heard about COVID-19. My colleague, he actually was leaving work because he was leaving on a sabbatical to go travelling around the world. And his main points were Thailand, South Korea, you know, that area of the world. And obviously he was really paranoid about COVID-19. And that's when I first really started to hear about what was going on over there. Because I've recently become one of those people where I don't like to read the news. So I don't read the news and I don't watch the news. I avidly avoid it on purpose. So when I've been thinking about this recently. In 20 years time, when we're doing pub quizzes and I've got kids and they're like, Mum, why don't you know this? Why don't you remember this? I'll be like, right, because I didn't read the news for 20 years. But yes, I'm going to affect my pub quiz in the future. But anyway, I've avidly avoided the news. So a lot of the news that I hear is usually through conversation. So my colleague, he was talking about it, and he was talking about obviously worrying about leaving and going to another country where, well, to an area of this world where most likely it was going to be starting or happening before it would here in the UK. In the end, at the time, I was like, oh, no, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. It's nothing. It's obviously going to be nothing. We weren't at the time getting accurate news either. Well, we couldn't believe if the news that we were getting was accurate. So we were all led to believe that it was fine, really. So we just carried on as normal. My colleague, he went traveling in the end. This was, I believe, mid-March. And he went traveling, so he was out there when all of this happened, which at the time you were like, well, of course, why would he stop himself going in the first place? Because you can't stop yourself from something that you just can't see happening. But then when he was out there, I was like, oh, maybe he shouldn't have gone out there. Maybe he shouldn't have. Because in the end, his whole trip, his whole sabbatical, it got cut short and he had to come home. They brought all British people back from abroad. Obviously, it happened all over the world. They brought everybody back home. And he was one of them. So really in the office, we just thought that it was absolutely going to be fine. And my husband, he actually works from home permanently and he always has. So for him, the changes aren't really massive apart from me being in the house now. So he didn't really hear much news either. So right at the beginning, I feel like I was very naive in what I knew or didn't know or what I believed about what was about to happen. And I think that our office was as well, because the MD and the managers, they always be like, right, this is happening, this is fine. And that is exactly what happened. We had a meeting, they were like, right, we're not going to be affected by it. It's all going to be fine. The government are telling us this. But then it just suddenly turned, didn't it? Like the next day, the government was telling us completely the opposite and we all had to come home and work from home. So that was my thoughts right at the beginning. It was quite confusing, but I do feel like I was very naive in believing that it wouldn't turn into something that it absolutely has.
Well, you're not the only one. So many people had the exact same attitude. I mean, I totally get where you're coming from in regards to not wanting to watch the news. I mean, there's that very famous line that so many people say, no news is good news. But I will say that what's very interesting about the UK in regards to the pandemic was you guys actually had some very historical moments over there. I mean, I don't know when it was the last time that you got 2 inspirational speeches from the Queen. And that I actually got an opportunity to hear. Her first speech was one of the most powerful and uplifting speeches that I ever heard. And I know that she just recently celebrated her 94th birthday. God bless her. The fact that anybody that age can actually just bring so much hope to so many people in times like these could not be more inspirational. And also, 2 of the political figures ended up coming down with the disease. So there was some very interesting historical events taking place in the UK. But yeah, but that's crazy. We got all that news over here. I mean, it wasn't just about Harry and Meghan coming to Canada. We didn't get that anymore.
I know, it was crazy. The Queen's speech really, it probably hit a chord with everybody in this nation, and definitely hit a chord with me because it was so unusual. Everybody sat down to watch it, and I remember, I think it was like two and a half minutes long in the end, and the word hope there is the absolute key because she is inspirational and she did drive hope. She talked back about her World War II experience, and it makes you really think about, in comparison, I think about my grandparents, my grandmother and grandfather who lived through World War II. All we're being asked to do is sit at home, and really in comparison what our ancestors did, we can do this. And at the end of that, when she said, I actually posted it on Instagram because I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it now because I thought it was such a beautiful quote. And she was like, we will see our friends again, we will see our family again, we will meet again. And I must have listened to that song by Etta James, honestly, on repeat for about 3 days.
Nah, that part of her speech was on the American Airways for a good 48 hours. And whenever I heard it, I just wanted to listen to it because, again, you're absolutely right. You know, a woman like her who witnessed so many historical moments in world history, the fact that it just made her more stronger and more impactful and more hopeful for the future. One of the few things that I'm pretty sure was she also probably didn't even know much about the Spanish flu because she was very, very young. She might not even have been born at the time. So I think like my grandparents were literally just coming into this world when the Spanish flu actually happened. So when people say nobody in this world has seen something like this before, there's a chance that there might be a survivor or two, but they're absolutely right. The last time a pandemic hit the globe was something that nobody, or at least almost nobody, can remember. So Gabby, let's talk a little bit about your experiences in the beginning.
Yeah, so you were talking about the news, and I'm a broadcast journalism major, so like for me, the news is everywhere. Like I am always talking about my classes, current events, and what's going on, and how the news is being covered. Are we doing a good job? Are we doing a bad job? What things are we seeing? And how should we be covering stories, looking at other stories and using that as a model for ourselves when we try to cover things? And so coronavirus was a big thing for us because as it started to become more and more prevalent in the news and people started to focus on it more, our professor decided that for one of our assignments, we essentially wanted to take coronavirus, which was a national issue, and localize it to the city of Chicago. And we tried several times to do this, and each time it started to just sort of derail because coronavirus started to become a bigger and bigger thing. So initially, our first assignment was to sort of ask the big question of like, how is the city of Chicago preparing for coronavirus when it'll inevitably become a pandemic or become a big issue? What things is the city doing to prepare? Like, what is their game plan? And so we were trying to talk to like medical officials and all sorts of different people. And obviously they were all incredibly busy because they were trying to do their job. And so we never really heard back from anyone. And my professor sort of realized, okay, maybe that was too much of a leap. And those people are obviously busy because they're in the midst of trying to repair and trying to help the city get through what is probably going to be a trying time. And so then we decided for like our second attempt of the story to talk about spring break and traveling and how people are being impacted in that regard. So like there were students that were traveling abroad that maybe have just had to come back. So talking to them about like what their experience was like being sent home, talking to pilots and people in travel and what things they were noticing related to coronavirus. And at that point, it still wasn't too big of an issue yet. One of my dad's friends is a pilot, and so I interviewed him for that story and was essentially asking like, what things are you seeing? And he was like, people are being, more cautious. Maybe some are wearing masks, but I think it's still safe to travel. Like it's not, the end of the world yet. And so I think a lot of people were still in those early stages of like, this will be fine. Like it's like not the end of the world. And then about like a week later, I started to see a lot of my friends getting emails that were in college of being sent home and of the college being shut down. And so I sort of knew that it was inevitable that that was going to happen to my college. But I think it took our school a little bit longer to shut down. I think like a lot of my friends got emails early in the week, and it took me until the end of the school week like March 12th, I believe, was when I got the email, which was a Thursday, and a lot of my friends had gotten it like Monday, Tuesday of that week. Um, I think like my school held out that long because we're a liberal arts college, and so if you're in the like television major or you're a dance major, you need those in-class resources to be able to learn. Like, I mean, for me, like I took a television production class last semester, and I cannot imagine having to do that class online because so much of it was being in the studio, being able to work with the equipment and close collaboration. And so that's something that our college relies a lot on, that I think they were trying to resist it as much as they possibly could. And eventually it just became inevitable that like all the colleges in the country are starting to shut down. And now like all the high schools too are not having classes. And so I think that was like the moment that I got that email, I was like, okay, this is a bigger issue than I probably thought it would have been. But like being in a journalism environment where we were talking about it and just actively seeing it become a bigger and bigger issue from one day to the next was really interesting. And I think it'll be a memorable experience for me in terms of like looking back on this once it's all over or a thing of the past, to be able to sort of see the news media and the way that they covered this and the way that the narrative around coronavirus shifted from being like no more dangerous than the common flu to being something where like the entire country is shut down.
Right, absolutely.
You know, that's interesting, Gabby, because that is like the beginning stage of the news, how it developed at first from, you know, it's just the flu, it's fine, to actually this is serious. How is the news over there at the moment? Is it kind of shifted again? Because I've definitely seen a shift in UK news. As much as I say I don't listen to it, obviously it's kind of picked up a bit now. It's definitely shifted a little bit more now. What's the shift for you guys?
Cool. I mean, it all depends too on what news organization you watch. I think a big thing is that because it's a presidential election year, a lot of this is being like very highly politicized. And so it's like this person said this and this person said this. Like what's trending on Twitter right now is Trump talking about disinfectants and like UV light.
Oh my God.
I heard about that.
Briefings, and that's like the big thing where everyone's making memes now about Clorox and bleach and everything. So I mean, it's crazy, I feel like, because it all depends on who you're hearing from. And I think a large part of like what's going on in the United States is trying to find like different cures or treatments or trying to find certain things that work or don't work. And so it's our journalism, like, I mean, going into broadcast journalism is like a choice for me because news right now is very, very like much a hot box issue. And there's a lot of people that just don't trust the news anymore because it is so heated and politicized. But my hope is that like I entering the field can ultimately like try to try to fix that, or at least like my generation that's entering into the workforce, that a lot of us who are journalists are hopefully go back to this point of being unbiased and of like reporting the news as it is, and like not letting like something that somebody says or a certain feeling like influence the way that we cover the news, to try to find cold hard facts. And
another inspirational statement, another one. I hope that there are dozens and maybe even hundreds of people going into the journalism field that have that attitude, Gabby. I really hope so, because you're absolutely right. The press right now, especially when it comes to the 24-hour news networks, hot mess. That's the only two words to describe it. It's terrible, because it's not necessarily about sending out the facts when it comes to these, whether it's ultra liberal or ultra conservative. It's really about catering to the viewers. And it's funny that you're mentioning that, because I'm going to be going over to my friend Taylor over at Page Screen Taylor's channel later on this afternoon, and we're going to be talking about the 1976 film Network and how so much of what was brought into that film sort of spilled out into the news later on, like into the 90s and into the 2000s, when it was the big corporations that took over these news networks, and then they said it's about the ratings. That's what it's all about. But no, I appreciate the fact, Gabby, that you have that attitude. I really, really do. So my experiences definitely comes from so many different directions, because also Gabby mentioned the fact that it is an election year. When the coronavirus started to make way in terms of what it was and what it was all about outside of China, in America, we were dealing with an impeachment trial.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
that was the thing that I was seeing covered on the news. Like, as I would walk into the journalism building, which is like the third floor of our building, I would just see, or the second floor actually. But anyway, we had like rows of televisions as you would just like walk to your classes, and they would have like different news channels on to be able to sort of see what was going on, and all of it was just impeachment coverage. And so I like didn't even really bat an eye at coronavirus until it started to become a bigger issue, and we started to like actively talk about it in our classes and write stories on it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
but that's
so
funny actually. I completely, obviously I'm not in your country. I completely forgot about the impeachment until you just said it now, because Corona has completely taken over. Like I don't even know what happened in the end with that.
the two big news events that were all over American news networks before COVID became a serious topic was the impeachment trial and the death of Kobe Bryant. When the COVID-19 story started to get a little bit more predominant into the news, my wife and I actually took a trip down to Washington, D.C. My wife actually went to college at American University, which is in Washington, D.C. It's in a very nice little campus. I actually went with her to see it twice, because we've gone down there ever since we pretty much became serious in our relationship. And she always likes to go to the school store to buy some, you know, whether it's a object like a mug or a hoodie or something like that. She likes going back to the store when she can. But when we were down in DC, that had already been after President Trump initiated the travel ban from China, which honestly, I think, regardless of what people say, was a very, very smart thing, because that is the reason why these diseases can spread so much more rapidly. I mean, when it was starting to be found outside of China, people were posting on their social media the end of the rise of the Planet of the Apes, which I thought was really crazy, because they showed how that disease spread through air travel. So when we were down in DC, and this was also the point in time when the cruise ships were being docked, and the people that were coming off the ships that were infected were put into army bases for quarantine. So it sounded like we were, in fact, doing well in regards to containment, because there was a very, very small amount of cases at that time. There were a bunch in California because it was all the passengers that went into quarantine, but there might have been one or two, like I think there was one in Massachusetts, one in Michigan, two in Washington State, I think maybe 3 in Texas. It was a very, very, very small amount of people. What also was kind of funny was one of the places where my wife and I went when we went to the National Mall in DC was the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History. And there just happened to be a limited exhibit on outbreaks. So talk about perfect timing. We're pretty sure that it wasn't planned, but we looked at everything from the Spanish flu epidemic to the AIDS epidemic to some of the more recent things like SARS and MERS and the Zika virus. We started talking about the Zika virus, my wife and I, and our fellow YouTuber friend, Stacy over at Stacy Stories. She lives in that area, so she always comes to spend a day with us, which is so much fun. And the Zika virus epidemic ended up being something that happened when my wife and I got married, and we went to Cancun for our honeymoon. And my mom was like saying, "Don't you dare go on any one of those Mayan pyramid tours, because I don't want you guys coming back with Zika virus." So we totally understood the whole concept, but this whole COVID-19 thing was not something that was really phasing us at the time, especially when we saw how the numbers were so low and how it seemed to be contained, and how, of course, more people were dying from the flu at that point in time. I mean, we get our flu shots all the time, but we know that that's a serious problem as well. But when things started to come out in the news in regards to what was going on in Italy, and the minute we heard that there was a case in New York City, I said, that's it, we're toast, we're done. Because I work in New York City. I mean, I may live in New York, but I think one of the funniest things that our governor, Andrew Cuomo, said in one of his recent updates. I like the fact that he comes on live television every day to give the entire state an update. And now it's a lot nicer because we're seeing the numbers drop tremendously in regards to hospital admissions, and the death toll, even though it's high, it's still going down every single day. But now there's a lot more talk about plans to reopen things. That's important. People want to hear that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. But he said, when people think about New York, they think New York City. Millions of people, tourist people coming in to see things like Times Square and Broadway, the Empire State Building. He says if you go deep north into New York State, you're going to find more cows there than people. So people have to remember that New York is much bigger than just that tiny little island that's called Manhattan. And that's why he's talking about gradually opening things up. So we live about 40 miles north of New York City. So we're in suburban areas. So we do have cases here, but they're not like the numbers you hear on the news in regards to what's going on in the metro area. Now, what was scary about that was when we found out that it was in New York. I work in the city. My wife works a little bit closer to the city, but a little further north at a school. And one of the things that we personally got very nervous about was that it was actually the second documented case that caused the first big spread and outbreak. It was a member of the Jewish community, because my wife and I were Jewish, we're part of the Jewish faith, and it was a community that was very close to where my wife teaches. And some of the kids that go to her school are friends with some of the kids that this person who came down with the virus was in a different school. So the thing about the Jewish community is we're very close knit. There's a little game that we like to play called Jewish geography. Almost all the time, someone knows someone who knows you, who knows someone else. It's kind of funny how the community is so tight knit. But when we found out that that was going on, we got very nervous because we thought that it was going to get to us. And we also found out that someone who goes to this person's synagogue was someone who worked in my office. So I got nervous that it might be in my office. So things were starting to get a little bit real. But like I said, the minute it hit New York City, because it's densely populated, I knew that it was going to be bad. So the last day that I went to work was actually St. Patrick's Day. So you can imagine a day where it's supposed to be filled with a sea of green, people ready to drink as much as they possibly can, see the parade,
Especially in New York as well.
Oh yeah, going into Grand Central Station and seeing it practically deserted was very eerie to me. And I went to my office, and I was actually not even sure if I was supposed to come in, because that weekend we got an email from the president of our school, and I couldn't seem to decipher the email. It said, if you can work from home, but just know that our office is open. So I sent a message to one of my bosses. I have two bosses saying, I just want to know what you guys are going to be doing. Are you coming in, or should I come in, or should I just work from home? And the response that I got was, well, take it as one day at a time. So I don't know about you two. When you read that email and you hear what your boss said, it sounds to me, get your ass into the office tomorrow. So I did. I wore a pair of plastic gloves. I didn't have a face mask yet that I actually wanted to wear for a long period of time. I did actually have a mask, but I used it for when I had an insect problem in my first apartment to spray down some bugs that we had, but I didn't bring it with me. But I kept my distance away from people. The train was virtually empty when I was coming into the office. And so I sit down, I had a morning coffee, I was ready to tackle the day. I sent an email to my bosses saying, I'm here, let me know what you guys want done. No less than 10 minutes, I get a call, not even a call, an email, a response instantaneously from one of my bosses saying, what in God's name are you doing in the office, Steve? Go home. So I picked myself up, brought a couple of extra things home, put on the gloves again, and just went home. And that was basically where I ended up. But in regards to the journalism, because Gabby brought up some great points, and you, Joanne, you brought up some great points as well. Right now, it's very, very hard to watch the news unless you're probably watching one of the local news stations, because that's where they try to be as balanced as they possibly can. But right now, there's unfortunate conspiracy theories, there's tons of finger pointing, and I'm sorry, you know, when the president finally does something right, he shoots himself in the foot. After taking 3 steps forward, he takes 10 steps back. That whole thing that happened 2 days ago is just asinine, pardon my French. And the funny thing is, when he basically says, I was being sarcastic, especially when you turn on Fox News and you hear their anchor saying, that didn't sound like sarcasm to me, Mr. President. That says something. And isn't it also funny how he's not doing the press briefings now? He literally didn't even take questions yesterday.
Yeah.
And there's no intentions because
I think that's what it took, because it was just yikes. It was absolutely, like, I feel like something like almost needed to happen like that in order for people to like wake up and realize like this is just yikes.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was like some people who were trying to say like he was talking about like intravenous light therapy, like with UV lights, or there was like some studies or something that was happening. But I'm like, if he can't articulate that, and if what he says sounds absolutely dangerous, then only have the people who are professionals speak on it, because he clearly doesn't know. He's maybe getting information from other sources, but like it's absolutely just yikes.
Well, what I've been saying for the past couple of months is listen to President Fauci. That's what I've been saying. Although I will say, I was talking to one of my neighbors the other day, and he said to me, because he's actually a senior citizen, so he's seen a lot of presidents. He says, I don't recall the last time that a vice president actually played a pivotal role in the branches of government. He said the vice president is always just there. He never actually does anything. But I appreciate the fact that Vice President Pence really took the side of Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx and all the other medical professionals. He seems to be really speaking the truth. But I think, I never actually said this yet, but it's a joke that I've had in my head. I think President Trump just ran out of things to talk about. And this was basically people who had been saying, stop these press conferences. Please just, they've been saying to stop these press conferences like weeks ago. I think he literally just said to himself, I think I made an oopsie. Finally, I think he realized he made a stupid mistake. Even though, yeah.
I was just going to say, can I ask you guys a question? Because I've not seen how your press conferences work. Are you getting a press conference kind of every day? And is it just from Donald Trump?
I get 3. We get one from the mayor of New York City in the morning, which I don't watch because I think that the reason why New York City is in the condition that it is because Mayor de Blasio did not shut the schools down quick enough. That was a big problem. And even though my wife works for a private school, she was very upset because they follow the public school system. Her school wanted to shut down. They were like, this is dangerous, especially considering the fact that they had so many scares. They had students, they had parents of students that knew people that were actually close to the person who had the COVID-19 that caused the outbreak in South Westchester. That's where it happened. And so they were saying, shut them down. And he just wasn't shutting them down. And I seriously feel that because of the fact that New York City is so densely populated, and it's not just Manhattan, it's Queens, it's Brooklyn, it's the Bronx. So many people live in a tiny piece of that state. And that's why it spread so quickly. But we get one of those. Then we get Governor Andrew Cuomo's press conference. And I appreciate his press conferences because he specifically says this is not about politics. When he even tries to bring the fact that politics are trying to be shot his way, he literally says, I'm going to shut it down. I don't want to deal with this. This is about New York trying to get better and trying to reopen. And then we get the president. And quite frankly, I don't really watch the president. I mean, like when he's up there and he's talking, I sort of like phase it out at this point in time. I just want to hear what Vice President Pence has to say. I want to hear what Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci say. I mean, I've already said to so many people, and if all of you who watch feel to disagree, please do, but I seriously think that Dr. Fauci is going to be the Time Magazine Person of the Year for 2020 because he has been such a positive and informative voice for the American people. I mean, for crying out loud, he's become a bobblehead at this point in time. I'm surprised that Funko hasn't jumped on it and made him a Funko Pop yet, because I would totally buy it. But no, that's the problem. The problem is, I think at this point in time, there's just too many people talking about it. And because of the fact that there's not enough to talk about it, the whole thing with the conspiracy theories and the finger pointing. I mean, the thing that people are saying that there are some states right now that are actually suing the government of China, I actually do support that, because I don't feel that China was as informative as they should have been. A lot of people seriously feel that they covered it up, and it's not because of the fact that it's China. It could have been Italy. It could have been South Africa. It could have been, oh, for crying out loud, if the virus began in Canada, it wouldn't have made a difference. You need to let people know that if something is bad, you've got to get the word out, and you got to get the word out now. There's a lot of people on the liberal and democratic side that actually do agree with what Donald Trump has done towards the World Health Organization, because a lot of people feel that they didn't handle it properly. And I agree as well. They should have tackled this so much sooner. So it's not just the United States. I think everybody at this point in time is to blame. But it's also because of the fact that this is something that hasn't happened to the world in over 100 years. So who knew how to do it right, you know?
Yeah.
And I think social media is like a big part of it too, because there is so many different like opinions and things going out into the world, and people disagreeing on things, and people being like, it wouldn't have mattered if we'd done anything, people would have gotten it anyway, which I like don't think is true. But it's just, yeah, it's a very weird time, and I think like being in the age that we are is a large part of it, because I wonder like if this had happened any earlier, if we didn't have social media, like the technology that we have, would this be better? Would it be worse? But I guess talking about the city of Chicago and sort of things going on here, we have JB Pritzker, and he's been doing press conferences, I believe, every day, like around like 3 o'clock, 3:30ish, sometime around then, sort of updating on cases of what's going on in the city of Chicago. I believe just recently he extended our stay-at-home order to May 30th, but he made like some adjustments in terms of reopening things. And then Lori Lightfoot, who is Chicago's mayor, has been doing like a lot of different things. Like her big moniker like on the social media is stay home, save lives. And so she's been sponsoring, doing different things, presiding over city council meetings. She has a live stream that she's not a part of it, but she streams it through her Twitter. So if you go to her Twitter account, you'll be able to see it. And it was one of the things I just had to do for my classes, and live tweet it, because that's something that journalists have to do, is like sometimes live tweet different like press briefings and things like that. That's called Ask Dr. Arwady, and it's essentially like someone who's involved in like medicine and like what's going on with COVID, answering people's questions. And it was really cool to get to watch that and sort of get to hear from someone in the medical field in Chicago in terms of what's going on. And so that's been helpful to sort of have like different outlets to be able to go to and different like resources. But it's all about like picking the right people to listen to and being able to discern good from bad in terms of what's being said, and being able to make conscious decisions for yourself about like what things you should be doing and how you should be handling certain decisions, and just listening to professionals and people who know best and know what they're doing in terms of how to handle this and make sure that the most amount of people are kept safe.
Right. So we're going to get into one more serious question, and then I promise everybody it's going to get a little bit more fun in the room. So let's talk a little bit more, even though we've sort of already scratched the surface. Let's talk a little bit about how life has been with you and the people surrounding you in regards to the shelter-in-place orders when they took effect. So we started with Gabby for number 2. So Joanne, back to you to start off our conversation on this question.
Sure. Where to start? This one is very open, like I have no idea where to start.
Well, that's the beauty of this. That's why I like doing these things, because they're so broad. The conversation just flows. That's
exactly,
the beauty of this.
Right, I'll start with kind of my situation and where I am. So I work from home now, so I have an office job, so I work 9 till 5:30, probably the same as you guys, obviously outside of college. So that's that's where I am at the minute. I work from home. My husband, he works from home anyway. That's his job. So at first we had a little bit of a struggle because we have one office, which is where I am now, and he works in the office. So I was working in the kitchen, and that was kind of hard to adapt to at first. But now I feel like I'm fully used to it. But the thing that I really struggled with was separating work life from home life. So I would be logging on earlier, I wouldn't really be taking a lunch, I would be logging off later. I'd be basically doing more work, because in an office you have a natural kind of step away from work, whether that's going to make a cup of tea, maybe it's going to just speak to your friends on a different desk, or if you need help from somebody you walk over and then it ends up being a half an hour conversation. You don't have those natural breaks at home because it is just you and your screen. You can like, we have Slack and we have Zoom and whatnot, so I can ring my colleagues. Obviously I still have meetings online, much like this, with clients and whatnot, but it's just really hard to step away. So I found myself doing so much more work than I ever would have been in the first place, which is really unusual, especially because the amount of work that we have has declined. So I don't know what you guys and what your government are doing in terms of people who are finding themselves out of work in this situation. But in the UK, we have a thing where the government are supporting furloughs, where it's a 3-month period where a employer can say, for the next 3 months, we expect that this person won't have any work, so we'll put them on furlough, and the government are actually paying 80% of their salary. So the company's not paying for their salary anymore. The government's paying 80% of the person's salary, so they're not going to find themselves in a financial difficult situation, which is obviously really, really good from the government. So it would also be interesting to hear from you guys what your government are doing in that situation.
Sure. We can go into that.
Yeah, should we go into that now?
Oh yeah. Well, if you have, please finish your thoughts.
Yeah, sure. So so that is the main thing about work in terms of, like, you know, outside of work, home life. I feel like people have been so creative, and I know we've got another question a little bit down the line, which will cover this.
Way to set it up. I appreciate that.
I'll just touch on it. Like, I have so many of these Zoom calls. I mean, I've met you guys that I never would have met in the first place. I've met other people as well. I've met another friend called Ashley, who's from my channel Read Now, Sleep Later. We've done a few things together, mainly focused because of the lockdown. And then all of my friends who I know from school, or who I know from any other way, we are also doing Zoom calls like this, like quizzes and stuff that we never would have before. So that's something that's really good, because this situation is so unique, like it has never happened before. Opposite to what Gabby, you were saying earlier in terms of technology, when it's used in a good way, the technology that we have is kind of a savior, as well as it may be detrimental. So when we see it from that point of view, it is really nice, and I think there's a lot of good things happening as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one of the few things that I specifically say to people when people ask me how I'm doing, I always say the following 2 things. Thank God I still have my health, and thank God I'm still employed. And that's one of the other reasons why I praise the educational system right now, because they at least as far as I know, most schools and most colleges and universities have really tried their very best to make sure that the students are still getting educated. I think one of the uplifting things, and that's one of the few things that's very interesting, I try to really take a look at the simple things in life right now that are really lifting my spirits. But it's nice to go onto my college's homepage on their website and see in big bold letters on the top of the screen, we are ready for summer and fall, whether we are going to be online or whether we are going to be doing this in person. We are open. I like that because it really gives me a nice sense of job security, because it's very tough here when it comes to people who work in the food services industry, unless it's in the grocery stores, like the restaurants and the hospitality. I think that the one thing that I've been saying to my wife, and then Gabby, I'll touch on a couple more things, but I'll let you speak after that. But one of the few things that I've been saying to my wife that's really upsetting to me is the fact that there's a lot of people that are saying, particularly on business channels, because one of the things that was very scary when the COVID-19 pandemic started becoming a real thing in the United States was how the stock market was tanking really, really badly. But it was a very different situation like the one that took place during the Great Recession in 2008. And as someone who was in the working world at that time, I got hit hard by that recession. I couldn't get, I was in financial services, which was the worst place to be in because that was what caused the problems. So I couldn't make any commissions. My good friend and I were roommates. We had to give up our apartment. I saw my bank accounts almost go to zero because I wasn't making any money, and I was very, very nervous. But you know, thank God I had a family who was willing to help me in any way. But the problem was I kind of wanted to try and do it on my own because I just didn't want to rely on them. I was too proud. And that was probably one of my big problems that I had there, but everything was sorted out, thank goodness. But, you know, I was getting very, very nervous about all of that. And, you know, I still felt that things were going to be okay. But the problem is, you know, one of the things that I love to do, I love to go to movies. I love to go out with my wife and eat at restaurants. I love to go to the mall. And the fact that the retail industry has suffered so much, the thing that you hear on the Business Network is you're going to come back to a world where some of these companies don't even exist anymore. Or the fact that people were saying that the malls were in decline, this just spiked it up. There's going to be no more shopping malls when this is done. Like, I don't like hearing those kinds of things. And to a certain degree, I'm pretty sure that there are so many people out there that agree with me, because I'm not a big, even though you're right, technology is very advantageous to us, but I'm not someone who walks around thinking that it's the greatest thing. I say to people, the cloud is a lie. I don't trust entirely streaming. I need physical. The concept of actually holding a book or holding a video game or holding a movie, because I say this to people all the time. You can stream and stream and stream. You can download and download and download as much as you want. Well, what's going to happen if Amazon actually gets hacked? Because it's going to happen. Okay, people didn't think that this pandemic was going to happen, but it did. Amazon's going to get hacked one day, and it's going to be brutal. And everything that you paid for that is in their cloud is going to vanish. Do you really think that Amazon is going to give it all back to you for free when everything comes back to normal? The answer is no. You're going to have to pay for it all over again, or there will be no Amazon. So that's why I am joking around sometimes saying you're going to find me at one of those protests to open up the country again one day, because we have to get the economy back and running. We have to. We also need to find a happy medium too, because we've got to stay healthy from a health standpoint physically, but economically as well. And Gabby, I'd like you to just run with this.
Yeah. So, oh goodness. One of the things about like flattening the curve that I don't think a lot of people realize, that I was learning a little bit about from some of the live streams and things that I was watching, is that in comparison to doing nothing at all, there would be like a huge spike of cases and then it would end very shortly. So it like wouldn't go on for as long because everyone would get sick all at once. But in that time, you'd be overwhelming the healthcare system and things would just like be very bad all at once, which is something that you don't want for all the healthcare professionals and people that are working to treat all these cases, because then, you know, they wouldn't have enough supplies, enough equipment. So the idea is flatten the curve, keep people to stay home. But the problem with that is that it takes a lot longer to get to that peak point and to be able to come back down, because the curve in itself is just wider and longer. And so it's frustrating having to like hear that like the stay-at-home order has been extended for another month, to just feel like this is going on and on and on, but it's never going to end. But this is just sort of the natural course that it looks like it's going to take when you're having this approach to like staying home and flattening the curve. So like, I guess on that note, talking about some of the things that like our government doing, because I know Joanna asked about that, but like I know there's like lots of stimulus checks and different packages like for small businesses, for them to be able to get through, for individuals, money that's being sent out. And I know like in terms of the stay-at-home order, JB Pritzker just announced in Chicago a modified stay-at-home order. So it's going to extend for another 30 days into May 30th. But now it's like, okay, like gardens and like greenhouses, those places can open as essential businesses, but you need to wear a mask. So like officially as of like May 1st, I think if you're going to like any public place, you need to be wearing a mask in order to limit the spread. And I think like vets and like pet grooming places are allowed to reopen.
Mhm.
And so you're seeing like lots of places are able to reopen as long as you have a mask, as long as you're keeping distance. A lot of places I think are able to be open now for online orders and
Yeah.
delivery and things. So we're starting to see like a gradual reopening, but I appreciate the steps that Chicago's taking, because I know there's some states that are trying to reopen now, and like the fear is that you'll see like another big jump in cases, and then you'll have to, you know, go back to where we were before. And I think I'd rather wait it out in the long haul and know that like once I get back out into the world that I'll be able to go back out safely.
Right.
Um,
And a little
and
bit about
everything.
your experience.
Yeah, so being a college student, it was kind of weird because I was like going in all my classes and like everything was fine. And then suddenly it just got shut down. And it was like a very abrupt ending where it's like I had to move out of my dorm, and all of my friends that like were RAs were having to do like room inspections and clean outs. Well, they also had to move out and have other people moved out. There's still people that are like out of state that have things in their dorm rooms that are like maybe not going to be able to go and get them. Like I know my suite mates, um, one of them lives in Illinois, the other is from the DC area, and so they are living together in a different building next year, if we're like allowed to move back in, you know, just whatever happens. And so I believe they got a storage space and just started putting all of their stuff in there. The one friend who's from Illinois is moving, going up back to the city at one point to do that. I don't know if she has yet, but it was just a weird time, especially for me, because I like found out I was going to be a resident assistant at my dorm in the fall and the beginning of March. And so I was supposed to have a meeting in April where I got to meet the staff, and we sort of got to talk about like what experiences and things were going to be like. And, you know, things just ended so quickly that I was like, okay, that's not happening now. And so I just kind of came home and have started to do online classes. Some of my classes don't meet at all. And it's just like, here's the work and like presentations or assignments or whatever, and you just get it done within the week. Other classes I'm meeting online with Zoom and doing assignments that way. So it's a very weird time, and I know there's a lot of college students that just don't have the motivation. They don't feel like they can learn online as well. And so I know there was a lot of people that were asking for refunds because they're like, we don't have access to the equipment and the resources and the whatever. And for me personally, like I'm happy with how my college has been handling it,
Mhm.
because uh they gave us a refund on housing and like meal plan, because obviously we weren't going to have access to that, and I think that was a smart move,
Right.
because it would be unfair to make people pay for a space that they're like no longer living in. So that I think was a smart move, but they're not refunding any actual tuition, which for me I think honestly like I see that as a vote of confidence, because ultimately it's their way of saying like we are trying to give you the best possible education with the resources that we have. And I think they also need that money because it is a liberal arts college. It's just like a smaller private school. And so I wouldn't want to see them like giving out mass refunds, because the idea is I want them to be able to stick around so that
There
I
you
can
go.
graduate in 4 years. So I don't mind giving them my money, even if I'm not having access to the same resources, because I feel like for the most part, a decent amount of my classes have adapted relatively well online. Obviously, it's not the situation that I would like it to be, but I'm just learning to like take it day by day and do what I can. And, you know, being in the suburbs, like things are relatively chill. And so I'm just sort of paying attention to what's going on, following the news when I can, and just like learning to take it day by day, getting through with all my assignments, trying to do things creatively to keep myself busy, and just learning to like manage, because I know that like this, like you mentioned with the queen, like this will be over soon, and that like we just got to do what it takes to get through this point, this rough point, and hopefully come out of it stronger than we were before.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely been, I would say the answer is interesting. One of the few things that I can say that the three of us are very, very blessed about is the fact that we are not going through this alone. Gabby, you're with your family. Joanne, you're with your husband. I'm with my wife. So at least there's somebody that is in our presence that we can talk to, especially when things are a little bit high strung. Because I think what's actually kind of funny is the minute one of us does not feel 100%, we're immediately starting to just go for the thermometer and take our temperature just to make sure that everything is okay and all of that. But yeah, my wife and I share an office, and we relatively can work very well together. I just know that when she is doing her Zoom sessions, when she's teaching her kids, I just have to keep my mouth shut and not say anything. Although what I find so funny is that every single time she's teaching, my phone rings because someone from my office needs to talk to me. So I have to just run out of the room room and go to a different room so I can talk to that person. But what was a little bit nerve-wracking for me was in regards to the work that I was going to do, because one of the few things that we had to really change was the way the students were taught. And we do student evaluations. Gabby, as a college student, I'm sure you do those for your instructors.
Yeah, I just had to submit some of my student evals. I think they're due, they were due, like in a few weeks. So I had plenty of time to get them done. But the minute that I saw that I had access to doing them, I just went through and completed all of them because I figured I'd rather just get them done than put it off. So yes,
Yeah.
that is something I've experienced with.
And one of the few things that I knew that I had to do before we were officially going into shutdown mode, there was a day where I actually took a personal day and I was seriously considering going to the movies to see The Invisible Man. But then I said to myself, you know something, I don't think I should do that, even though the theater's probably going to be empty. I think I should get a haircut instead. And I'm really, really glad that I did that. The one thing I still can't understand is why you can't find toilet paper anywhere, even though the hoarders have completely gotten everything they need. I mean, thank God we had enough. But now I can see the panic in my wife's eyes. She's like saying, Steve, I think the toilet paper's running out. We really have to find some more. But it's so weird. I just still don't understand the whole thing with the toilet paper. I mean, clearly paper towels, you can find those now. You can find more hand sanitizer now. But the toilet paper, I just don't understand. But anyway, you know, I'm glad that I'm able to get out and go for a walk every morning. I also try to take as many negatives there and turn them into positives. Like, I appreciate the fact that I don't have to get up at 4:45 in the morning every day to get out of my house and catch a 6 o'clock train. Do I miss actually taking the train sometimes? Yeah, I did actually enjoy the train ride. It was actually kind of, you know, my moment of zen, you know, be by myself, listen to some music, read a book or something like that. But you know, the fact that I don't have to do that, that's good. The fact that I know that my wife and I were saving money on gas, although gas prices are so low right now, I'm just like, God, I wish I could just go out and take a drive somewhere because I want to take advantage of this really cheap gas right about now. And also, I have also think the biggest challenge that I saw going into this was trying to keep my weight down. And I'm so glad that I sort of try to change my diet a little bit. I basically now just eat my basic 3 meals, a little bit more for breakfast to give me more of an energy boost. But between meals, I don't snack. All I do is drink water. And it actually has helped me a great deal. My weight has gone down a little bit because I'm exercising and I'm watching what I eat more. The fact that I'm actually cooking a lot more of my own meals. And that's another thing I'm very, very blessed for. My wife and I, we both cook. So we split the cooking. Although I hear one of my friends here on YouTube has said recently, and I quote, I have baked my last muffin. Like, she is just sick of doing all of this stuff, and I don't blame her. But I think the one thing that has really been frustrating me being in the lockdown is just the fact that every single day I wake up and I say, this is another day where I can't go see my friends. This is another day where I can't go see my parents. I was so excited to finally get together with my parents for the holiday season in April. And then when we found out that we couldn't do it and we couldn't even go to my wife's parents and we couldn't see our siblings. I've got 2 siblings and both of my siblings have daughters, and you know, my brother's got 3, my sister's got 1. I love seeing my nieces, and the fact that we had to celebrate birthdays with people through Zoom or just through a text message, like, to a certain degree, that's a little sad. I think and that's why I keep saying to people, yes, I understand that shelter in place, social distancing is very important, but at the same time, that's why, and I said this to people, the protests that are happening now, I said to people weeks ago, it's gonna happen because humans are not animals that you can keep in cages. We like to go out, we're active, we're social. And I understood especially the protests that were happening in Michigan because they were a little too extreme. An example would be, you can go into an essential business to get groceries, but if you go to get seeds for the sake of planting flowers or planting vegetables in your garden, you're going to get fined. You're not allowed to take your boat by yourself and go out into the open water to go fishing. And like someone once said, you can't get more social distance than fishing by yourself. Like, it was a little too extreme. I heard that that governor is now officially walking back those rules so people can have a little bit more independence and a little bit more free roam. But as far as I know, our governor was setting the date for May 15th. He's also coordinating with a bunch of other governors in the neighboring states like Massachusetts and I believe Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania even. So right now, it really sounds like they want to start opening things back up and they want people to start going back to work because they know that health is important, but they also know that the economic health of this country is very important too. People do know that.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you said about Michigan and the fines, just to compare to the UK, because it was actually quite funny, and I remember this for a long time actually. When we first got our rules from Boris about, you know, staying inside, staying at home, these are the rules. So he said it on a, I believe it was a Thursday, if I'm remembering right, or maybe a Friday. I think it was a Friday actually. And then it was a really, really sunny weekend in the UK. And like I said, it's rare that we get sunny weather in the UK, and at the moment we're going for like an amazing heat wave. So everybody was out. They were out in parks, sunbathing, all the rest of it. Everyone was doing basically whatever they wanted, but they thought they were social distancing. And this is the bit that I'll remember from Boris Johnson. And it was like on the Monday after the weekend, and he basically said, I don't want to give you fines. I don't want to restrict you. But if you carry on being stupid, I will have to do this. I will have to restrict you. Yeah. So he didn't put the restrictions in place, but he kind of, it's kind of like how you treat a child. Like, you want this cake, then you need to do this to get this cake. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Yeah. So
well, that's sort of what happened in Chicago, because like around the time that everything started to shut down was around St. Patrick's Day. And I mean, you talked about that being a big thing in New York. I wouldn't say it's a bigger thing in Chicago, but at least from my personal experience, like St. Patrick's Day in Chicago is huge because they have the dyeing of the river green. All the bars are open. They have like pub crawls where you go from like one bar to the next to the next. They have the St. Patrick's Day parade. So there's like a lot of stuff going on. And so obviously like the dyeing of the river green was canceled and the parade was canceled, but there were still people that were going out to bars. And so that was immediately what prompted the like restaurants are being shut down for only takeout and delivery. And like a lot of like people that like are in Illinois like government were just really disappointed by what happened, especially J.B. Pritzker and Lori Lightfoot. And so that was like the immediate like slap on the wrist of like, no, like you can't do that. So now we ended up where we were. So
look, I'll tell you, they say you threaten to separate a fool from their money and they're going to listen to you. Some people even think that fining people for doing things that are not dealing with social distancing is considered illegal. You know what? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But the most important thing is when you threaten somebody with a fine, they're going to listen to you because people want their money. Now, if they do, in fact, open New York City again, I mean, one of the few things that I also didn't mention earlier was the fact that I'm very grateful that I don't have to spend $400 a month for a monthly pass for me to get to work. I think that that is just asinine. And the fact that I've built up some cash in this little company reserve fund, I actually just changed the amount of money that comes out of my paycheck now. So I'm actually going to be getting more money in my paycheck now rather than going towards my commuting expenses. But I have no issue going out in public wearing a face mask in places where you can't social distance. I mean, look, when your wife makes you something as cool as this, how can you possibly not want to wear this? I mean, I will totally wear this. Although I've been very kind to her and I didn't beg her to go onto Amazon.com and say, could you get some DC comic fabric so I can get a matching one, Marvel and DC? And I'm like, I'm not that cruel. But yeah, I'll wear this with pride. I love the fact that I have this. But I have no issue wearing that face mask if it's going to basically say that, look, if there are ways where we can social distance or at least be healthy, like I seriously feel that if barbershops, you know, if the barbers wear masks, take their temperature before they come into work, wear their gloves, sterilize the area, not let so many customers in at a time. Yes, I understand. The barber and the customer will not be able to social distance, but if they really take all those precautions before they service a customer, it can work. especially if the person knows for a fact that they're healthy. I mean, the fact that they're trying to do what they're doing in South Korea, where they're actually going to have temperature stations or heat sensors when people walk into work and they see that their temperature is up. It's like, no, you can't come in today, go home. That's what we really need to do a lot more. So yeah, it's been interesting. I think that we're all going to come out of this a lot more aware. I mean, I still don't think that the handshake is going to die. I seriously feel, especially when the vaccine does get developed and is officially out there on the market, people will shake hands again, because you have no idea how many people say, I want to give somebody a hug. And I really feel that we will get back to the true normal when we have more of those breakthroughs in medicine. But I still believe that things are going to start getting a lot more better. I mean, especially with the more positive news we get out of New York City, which is the hardest hit area. That's very good. But anyway, let's get into the fourth question, because we still have 4 more questions, and this is where all the fun is going to start. Let's talk about what the pandemic has done to you in regards to enhancing your creativity on your channel, Gabby. You clearly have been doing stuff, and I love it.
Yes. So I pretty much all of this started, I guess, to give a little bit of a backstory. I was kicked out of my dorm on March 12th, and that March 13th, I decided to come home. I didn't like pack up everything yet because I wasn't completely told to move out, but they were just like, go home, classes are canceled. And so a lot of people's game plan was just to head home and sort of wait it out and see what happens. And so at that point, I had been on Twitter and I saw that there was someone in the Broadway community named Andrew Barth Feldman. He played Evan Hansen in Dear Evan Hansen on Broadway. And he was essentially doing this thing called Broadway Jackbox, where he would bring, it was himself and Alex Boniello, who's been in like a whole bunch of different Broadway stuff, but was Connor in Dear Evan Hansen. And the two of them essentially put together this little live stream to raise money for the Actors Fund, which is helping actors and people in the theater community or just in the entertainment industry who were displaced by COVID-19 or maybe put off from their job that aren't able to pay for housing or whatever, be able to give them like a resource to be able to come to be able to get any like funds that they could potentially need. And I sort of saw that was being put together, and I was like, that's a really, really cool idea. I wonder how I could adapt that for the booktube community and see if there's any booktubers or people that are just like creators that want to sort of do something similar, where we just all sort of hop on to like YouTube and just spend the time like talking with other people, talking with viewers, and just getting to have conversations about like books that we're reading, different things that we like, and being able to have conversations. Because, you know, filming like a YouTube video is fine and fun, but you know, at the end of the day, it's just you talking to the camera. And sometimes it's nice to have that interaction with other people and getting to hear their thoughts on different things, or getting to hear like what different viewers have to say in regards to like things that you're posting, and be able to have that like live interaction. And I think a lot of us were starting to realize that we were going to have to be a part. And I just thought like that, you know, like we have this whole online community, we have so many resources to be able to come together and to be able to collaborate, especially in an online format. Like this is something that we can very much do and it's attainable, and I think will be helpful to people to just have a place to like escape for a little while, watch different people talking, having conversations, and be able to be a part of that. And so I put together the booktube live shows, and eventually was just putting out there like who wants to join, who wants to be a part of this, and just finding different people and sort of scrambling to put different live shows together. And so I've just done like, I just did my 7th one yesterday, and it was Shadowhunter themed, because obviously I love the Shadowhunter Chronicles and Cassandra Clare. And so that was really fun to get to talk to other people about a series that I really, really love. And I actually ended up getting to be in my local paper, and it was one of the last stories
Yeah, that's
before
right.
they shut down for
Oh,
coronavirus. I had a reporter who came out because essentially my local newspaper was asking like, is there anything cool that people are doing during coronavirus to be able to like deal with the situation? And so I was like, this is something that I put together, and I had a reporter come out and take some pictures, put a story together, and that was really cool to be able to see, to get to be
that's
able
wonderful.
to have had that happen, and to just get to see the response from like other people who are interested in joining. And I'm hoping to get to do more of them as I start to wrap up my spring semester and start to have a little bit more free time on my hands and more flexibility. But that 3 week, because I had a 3 week period where I wasn't in any classes and I just had no responsibilities at all whatsoever, because I had just gotten a job like with my school being an RA in the fall, and so like I didn't have anything like to come back to. at home, because I knew like that was going to be a responsibility come August. Like if that does still happen, like I wouldn't be allowed to have a summer job, wouldn't be able to have anything. So I didn't want to like have anything interfere with that. So I just had 3 weeks worth of like, I have nothing to do. And so I decided to like start to put these live shows together. And it's been fun to still get to do them like while I've been doing schoolwork. It just gives me like more time to be able to like work with different people. Obviously it's a little bit busier having to manage everything, but it's been fun to just like find different people, get suggestions of like what people would be interested, and just have like a space to be able to talk with different people the way that I'm talking with all of you.
Yeah, after this is done, I'm really hoping that Joanne ends up on one of your live shows. I think she should. I appreciate that, you know, there's so many creators out there that they make those kinds of things and they fade out so quickly. But I can see, especially, you know, in social media, I just see the passion, and I just see how it's really not just making you excited about the fact that you're being creative, but I also think it's helping you through this time, because yeah, you're absolutely right. It's tough. And that's another thing that I didn't get a chance to mention. And then I'll, of course, Joanne, I'll let you talk about your stuff next. But I also really appreciate the fact that you mentioned the fact that the Broadway community was doing these things. And you also see these things on television, like the concerts.
Yeah.
Also with, you know, all the cons that are getting canceled. I still remember when Emerald City Comic Con got canceled, along with all the sporting events and all that stuff. I still like the fact that Funko, the company that I adore to death, you know, why I'm not working for them, I don't understand. But when Emerald City Comic Con got canceled, and obviously WonderCon in Los Angeles got canceled, and now San Diego Comic Con got canceled, that's the time when Funko likes to bring out their limited products. And what they did was they brought the con, at least their portion of the con, to their fans. They did VirtuCons. So they did Virtua Endless City Comic Con, Virtua WonderCon, and they still put out their limited products through all the retail outlets that they were supposed to go to. So people were still able to get what they wanted. So I appreciate the fact that the people in the professional world are also just trying to make this a little bit more easy for everybody, in really the fact that they're being as creative as they possibly can in regards to that. So Joanne, a little bit about your stuff.
Sure. I mean, going back on that, Gabby, I'd absolutely love to join you on your live shows.
Yes, we will work on putting that together. I would love that.
Like Lex Luthor said in Batman v Superman, I love bringing people together.
YouTube Cupid, I think you are.
Bam.
So yes, just about my channel and what I've been doing. So the first thing that I did on my channel, so within my family and friends and also at work, we were doing a lot of quizzes on Zoom, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to bring it to my channel because I really wanted to do a book quiz, and not a lot of my friends or family really know that much about books. So I thought I could create a book quiz and do it with my friends and family, but everyone would be moaning and being like, this is too hard, I don't know these things. So I thought, you know what, I'll do it to the community that I know will love the answers, love the questions and the answers, and that is obviously on BookTube. So I started that by doing a Friday night pub quiz, and it was just a book quiz. It was only going to be a one-off quiz, and that was going to be it. And I thought, you know, that's fun, that'll be it. But it turned out that a lot of my friends and family did actually turn up as well. They loved it. Obviously there was the YouTube community also on the quiz who also loved it, and everybody was asking me straight away, when's the next one? So then I turned it into a series of 4 quizzes every Friday for 4 weeks, and it was different theme each time, because I figured with everyone involved I'll do a few different themes. And then I did a leaderboard as well of the winners overall, and then what I've just posted, which I posted on Friday just gone, was the winners, and it was the winners and their prizes, and I've sent all prizes out to them. And honestly, it was just so much fun organising questions, creating quizzes, obviously doing the live stream, and then getting the leaderboard and the prizes. I just had so much fun doing it, and all the feedback I've had as well was everyone having so much fun. So it really was just a way to just spread a bit of joy and happiness and bring people together who wouldn't normally be in the same situation, just kind of exactly the same as us now. So that was one of the things that I did, and I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed doing it. And like I briefly mentioned earlier, there's quite a few different things going around on YouTube around this lockdown area. One of the things I did as well, I connected to Read Now, Sleep Later, Ashley from that channel, and we decided to do a lockdown readathon. We originally did a 24-hour readathon, and then we did a second one, which was over a 2-day period. And I've also connected to so many people through that as well. I have a Discord where we all connect and chat to each other about books still even now, as well as having the live streams and whatnot with Ashley. So they were the two main little things that I did during this whole period for doing something different, I suppose.
Well, you mentioned Read Now, Sleep Later. I am subscribed to her channel as well, and it reminded me of something that I should have said at the beginning of this live stream. I really think that you two have two of the best channel names. I love them. They're just so creative and awesome. So I just wanted to compliment you both on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, the thing that I noticed was obviously when all the movie theaters started closing down, and not just that, all the big blockbusters were either going straight to streaming services, or most of them, thank goodness, are still going to be in theaters, but they're just going to be at a later point in time. That was when I said, well, a large portion of my channel is me sitting down and talking about new stuff. So what am I going to do when I don't really have new movies to talk about? Honestly, I wish that more music that I listen to was coming out with more new stuff, because I could talk about new music and new television shows that I only talk about like twice a year on my channel. But basically, even though I still had content coming out in regards to my monthly segments, I just said, there's a void here. I've got to find a way to fill this void. And if it wasn't for Gabby having me come on to 2 of her live streams, the creative juices wouldn't have been flowing as predominantly. Not to say that I'm not a creative mind. Oh my goodness, that hamster on the wheel still has not stopped running. It's crazy. But I tried to figure out some new things, and that is why I made some impromptu live collab ideas. Like this one literally just came to my mind, and you know this, Joanne, because you were the first person I brought this to. This came out of my head in no more than 2 weeks time, when I got my friend Margaret from the Word Nerd to join me for a 2-hour conversation on, is DC Comics overrated? That was completely impromptu. Love the fact that that came out. And one of the other things that I was entirely grateful for was the fact that, thanks to Gabby having me on her collaborative stuff, that was how I actually, after months and months and months of waiting, I finally hit 2,000 subscribers, because I had a goal that I kept bringing to my people that watched me, and that was, if you guys get me to 2,000 subscribers, I promise you there's going to be a shelf tour, because there were so many people that wanted that to happen. Well, guess what? There's going to be a shelf tour, but it's probably going to be somewhere in the realm of 4 to 6 videos, because people always say, I want to know what's on that shelf behind you. But there's 3 of them over here, but there's more shelves in this house. And there is more than just movies that I want to showcase. I want to show everything from my entire music collection, to all of my books, to my over 300 Funko Pops. Yes, you heard me correctly. And also some of my other things that I have, because I have a mug collection. I have a t-shirt / sports jersey collection. Like, there's so many things that I know that people are just, that I connect with, are going to love to just see. I mean, in the room that I am in right now, right across from me, on the mantle that's over my fireplace that my wife and I don't even use, for crying out loud, the TV is sitting right in front of it, there is a Mace Windu replica lightsaber and 5 Harry Potter wands.
Wow.
So I know for a solid fact that people want to see everything. So it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of battery life. But with all the time that I've got, oh, believe me, I'm excited to film this stuff, and I'm excited to finally bring all of these things to everybody, because one of my favorite things when you do a shelf tour is I love seeing people's comments. I was like, oh, I love that you have that. I love that you have that. I had that too. Or like, where did you get that version? You know, like my Harry Potter movies, they're actually right behind me. Those are the 4-disc ultimate editions, which you can't even find in stores anywhere. So I'm just really excited. I mean, look, even the t-shirt I'm wearing, it's a Funko Pop t-shirt. I have a collection of these myself. So there's collections of so many kinds, and I love collecting things. So why wouldn't I do that? So yeah, it's just been so much fun. And the Versus episode that I did recently, which was bringing Disney Renaissance versus Disney Revival together, that was a great show. I've got 2 friends joining me next Saturday. We're going to be doing the movie Black Panther versus the movie Aquaman. So it's Marvel versus DC. I am really excited to have that conversation with my friends. And yeah, it's been fun to know that the creativity has not stopped and the videos are still coming out. But I'm sure you would agree, I am just really excited to finally get back to the theaters because I want to see Black Widow. I want to see Wonder Woman 1984. I want to see Disney Pixar's Soul. I want to see Raya and the Last Dragon. So many amazing movies that I know are waiting for me. Oh yeah, and of course the 25th James Bond film. I am so excited to see that. That was one of the few things I was really upset about. I was actually going to have my friend Sophie join me for a Sunday sit down in April to talk about everything James Bond, but we both believe we all had seen the new movie. But the minute they said it's coming out later on this year, we were like, darn, darn. I was just more excited about seeing that movie because I only see James Bond films with my father. So the fact that my dad and I were going to go to a movie, the fact that that had to be put on hold, that it broke my heart. It really did. But let's get into the 5th question, and that is, what have you discovered about yourself because of this pandemic when it comes to occupying your time on YouTube and off YouTube?
This is quite a tough one. I found this, I mean, I obviously prepped the questions a little bit, but I thought, I struggled with the question. I thought, you know what, I'll think of something at the time, and actually, I'm not sure if I can answer it.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Listen, that's not, you're not the first person to not be able to answer a question. Don't worry about it. But maybe through the conversation, your answer will come to you. That's what I was
gonna say. Maybe you guys kick it off, and I'll see if I can relate.
I think for me, like, I feel like when it came to YouTube, like I had certain creators that I watched because there's a lot of people that talked about them and they were sort of the big faces in the community. And I think it's given me an opportunity to be able to find a lot of smaller creators, people who are like interested. And I know that kind of goes a little bit into the 6th question. But I also feel like I've maybe had like more motivation to film. I've been coming up with more ideas. I feel like I've been able to dedicate like more time to YouTube because I'm just in a more creative space where I'm watching other people's content and I'm able to sort of see like what things can I do, what am I capable of. And I feel like I've been able to grow a little bit more beyond just like the normal content that I've posted. And it's been nice to like have that creative freedom to be able to get to do that, to be able to get to grow with my channel, to get to do different things and to be able to actually have people to like collaborate with. Because I think that was one of the biggest things, like being a smaller creator, it's hard to reach out to people to like make sort of things like this happen because a lot of times it's a numbers game. I know for me, one of the people that I had on one of my BookTube lives was Sasha from The Wild Sasha, and she essentially posted a tweet that was like, there was this big creator that was like asking for people to be a part of like a BookTube live stream, sort of similar to what I was doing.
Yes,
and they turned her down because she didn't have enough subscribers. And so I immediately jumped in and was like, I'm doing that in my own capacity and I don't discriminate in terms of like who, like I'm willing to have anybody, because the fact that anybody be willing to join me is something that I'm really grateful for. So I like reached out to her and we managed to put an episode together with her and a few other people that she had recommended that would be interested in joining as well. And so it's just been nice. I feel like the community is coming together a little bit more.
Yes, I think so.
And you're seeing like lots of different collaborative things. And I mean, I have no idea who the creator was that like did that. But I think for the most part, a lot of people are like coming together, coming up with different creative projects and using this opportunity that we have to really get to like come together as a community. And I think that's like a great thing, because if we're going to spend this time here in the community, we're all going to sort of be isolated. We might as well try to get through it together.
Yeah, I mean, in the last couple of years, there's been so much division, not necessarily in the booktube community, but especially on social media in general. Also, I could be entirely wrong about this, but I just want to throw out a little curveball here. Gabby, you might be able to answer this one much better because you've been here for a much longer time, but have you seemed to notice, because I think I have you noticed that cancel culture has been almost eliminated?
Eliminated. Okay, interesting. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I was
I
just
don't see
watching,
it often.
I mean, I think it depends on who you follow too. I think like
Maybe.
just recently I noticed that there was like a hefty load of booktube drama that
I
was
didn't
going
know
on.
that.
Basically there was like something that went on with Mackenzie Lee and like her signing like other people's books. It was like this whole weird thing that I'm not gonna bother to
Oh,
get into because
yeah,
it's just
please
not
don't.
relevant. And there was like something with someone who made floating bookshelves and it was like they only had YA books on their like shelves and that became a whole thing. And so it just kind of depends on who you follow and like what pops up in your feeds. But I think there is a significant amount of booktube drama that happens, and I think a large amount of it like feels so pointless to me.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's like one person makes a comment and the entire community decides to go after that person, and it's like, okay, it's one person who has like very little following and is just like putting something out there who's like either a troll or someone who's looking to get a rise out of you. So I think we could work on that a little bit as a community.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that like in general, for the most part, like those things aside, the community is coming together and doing lots of creative things. And I think that it's starting, like I think that it's hopefully, as long as there aren't like a lot of major issues that warrant conversation, that we're starting to come together a little bit. I think there's less individual creators that are being attacked, if anything.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm gonna flatter you once again. We need more people like you. That's the underlying theme of this conversation right now. Gabby's the good person in YouTube. We need to listen to her, plain and simple.
yeah, I mean, I try. I think it's like hard because I've been I'm coming up on my 5-year anniversary in July that I've been doing YouTube. And
Congratulations.
obviously I've like,
Wow.
thank you. I've grown a lot like in that time, and I almost feel like it surprises me that it's almost been 5 years because I feel like I've grown so much as a creator in terms of my capabilities and what I've been able to do, because it just started out with like me and my iPad and just sort of like whatever, and then eventually by like 2016 2017 I was growing a lot more as a creator in terms of the videos that I made and really like finding my like space as a creative person, and in terms of like what I want to post on YouTube, how I put together my videos, things like that, and just learning as I go. But it's been interesting to see how like YouTube and booktube has changed too during that
Yeah.
time, and like the and how just like, oh, what's going on in the world sort of changes the way that we create and the stories that we decide to tell and what we want to focus on and what messages we think are worth sending. And I think this is a good time for smaller creators too to be able to work together and come together,
Absolutely.
because I know 2018 was a big year for smaller creators because there was all of those issues with like monetization.
Yes. Yes,
And
yes. Hashtag small YouTube army,
yes,
which I
and so
still use. I still
yes,
use that to this very day.
absolutely, as you should. And so I think it's nice to sort of see the smaller creators coming together and taking opportunities like this to have conversations, to be able to talk, because I think we learn from each other that way and become inspired that way. And I'm just happy to have been able to sort of have this time, because as much as like this sucks, like having to be inside and there's a lot of bad that
Yeah.
comes out of it, I think there's also going to be a lot of good in terms of being more grateful for the family, the community that we have, the local restaurants we have that we can go to for a meal, and the small businesses that are out there in the world, like the small bookstores and the like events that we're able to go to because they host those and different things. But I think it'll also be like make us more grateful for the communities that we have and the people here who are using the platform and the resources that they have to be able to help people come together.
Beautifully spoken, beautifully. I will definitely say that one of the few things that I've noticed about me is that I am so much more goal-oriented than I thought that I was. And because of the fact that I am goal-oriented, I can sometimes be a real anal asshole. I'm not joking. Wow, I don't think that's so funny. Those are like two similar things in one thing. I don't think I've ever actually used that before. That is weird. But anyway, no, it's just like a perfect example would be that I've got two major projects at work. One is dealing with the student evaluations, but I'm also putting together a self-evaluation for the faculty members. I think one of the funniest things that happens is when we went to an orientation for health benefits and they asked people in the room who works with the students, and they said who does not work with the students. And of course, I was one of the people that raised their hand. They go, well, consider yourself one of the lucky ones. And I'm not going to say, I'm going to disagree with that because I have it worse. I have to deal with the faculty. And then he said, no, you're absolutely right. I'm sorry about that. But that was actually the funniest part of the day, for me at least. That's kind of bad. But anyway, it's like for the self-evaluation of the faculty, I knew what I had to do to get things going. And it was supposed to go out to the faculty this coming Monday. So I sent my boss a barrage of questions. Also sent him so many materials to review for approval. I got no response for about almost a week, and I was angry. I'm like, you want me to do this, but you're not letting me know if what I did is right or if it's wrong, or are we ready? Basically, my entire team had to hunt my boss down to get him on the phone with me and get me on the phone with him for more than 5 minutes. So thank God we got it all sorted out. But that's one of the few things that I actually said yesterday. I was like, I got a call from my father, and I'll tell you, getting calls from my parents is some of the most uplifting things that I'm getting. It's like all of us when we're growing up, it's like, how badly do we want to avoid our parents? But now we're like getting so much closer to our parents. And I just said to him, I was like, Dad, I just got to get out of the house. I got to go back to work. I want to go to the office. I need communication. So I'm glad to see that, you know, when my eye is on the prize, whether it's in real world situations or in YouTube, I mean, like, my calendar is my best friend. I even write what I'm going to eat for breakfast in the morning because I just want to make sure I know that everything is balanced. Could it be a little bit obsessive? Maybe to some perspectives, perhaps. But I just feel that I need to have order, and I need to have my goals, and I need to have my set times for my goals. Same thing with my YouTube stuff. It's like, I know that this has to get done on this day and this has to get done on that way, because as someone who took project management courses in his master's program, you've got to have these goals set for you so you know how to manage your time and use your skills to the best of your ability. So that's one of the few things that I've learned about myself. I find myself very goal-oriented, unfortunately because of that, very impatient, but I'm also glad to know that my education was not money thrown out the window. I seem to be using it, especially when it comes to my YouTube skills as well. And I also, just one of my favorite things to do is I love to make thumbnails and teaser trailers for my live streams. Those are just my favorite things to make because that's where I can really get creative, and I just love posting them for the whole world to see. So, Joanne, has this inspired you to figure some things out?
I don't know, you know. I just feel like for me during this time, I feel like what I normally would do has kind of just expanded. So rather than thinking of new things or what I've discovered that as something new, I feel like I've just expanded in terms of what I can do and what I can watch because we have this extra time. And I think that, like, we're going back to what we were saying earlier, when we look back at this time, it's going to be so strange because we're going to be back to normal. It'll be over. The news will forget about it. We'll forget about it, just like I forgot about the impeachment trial. We'll completely forget about it, and we'll go on as normal, and then we'll look back to this time and we'll go, I had all this time. What did I do with it? And what I can say is that I've definitely expanded in terms of who I've been able to find, who I've been able to watch, what I've been able to watch, and just the involvement in the community. I know you said about a lot of what you were saying, Gabby, earlier about how the history of booktube and drama and whatnot. I haven't been a part of that. Like I said, I'm quite new, so I haven't seen any of that. So what I have been seeing has been really positive, and I kind of feel like I'm on a uphill kind of time of what I can see and my involvement in the community. So I think rather than discovery, I guess it's kind of just how I've evolved, I suppose, like Pokemon during this time.
Oh, you know something? You mentioned Pokemon. One of the few things I love about going on my morning walks is the fact that because I live so near a train station, there are 3 gyms and 4 Pokestops near my house. So I get to actually do all my Poke hunting during a walk. If I may, I actually want to say something that I observed about you because of all of this.
Sure.
And what I know is that there's a famous saying, if you want to learn how to swim, you got to jump in the water. There are so many new creators that are so afraid to do some of the things that you do. It takes some creators such a long time to be willing to do a live collab with other members of the community. You literally took a deep dive right into the pool so quickly, and I appreciate the fact that you were willing to take some of those intimidating risks for the sake of growing your channel. And I think that's the reason why your channel has grown so fast. I mean, there are some people that don't understand why I'm really doing everything that I can do, and yet somebody just makes a video and they get 1,000 views. Like, people say that all the time, but for yourself, it's because of the fact that you exposed yourself to other people because of the collabs that you did. You got a lot more subscribers, but also it's because of the fact that you do have an awesome presence, and your presence that you bring during these times, it's like I said earlier, it's like you are such a positive, happy person when you're making your videos. There are so many people that don't know how to be that way during this time. And I just appreciate the fact that you do that, because we need that right now. We need it.
I really appreciate that. That's really, really nice. That's such a nice thing to say.
I'm just observing it. That's what it is. I'm telling the truth here.
I'll tell you what my so my biggest inspiration, and she always has been, my biggest inspiration in life is Dolly Parton. I absolutely love her music, who she is as a person, absolutely everything. And one of her quotes, and one of my favorite quotes really, and what I live by is, now let me make sure I get this right. She always says, if you see somebody without a smile, give them one of yours. And I just think that is what I've heard it for years. I've always loved it. From the moment I heard that, I was like, right, that's it, that's me, that's my life, and that's just how I've tried to be. And I remember the moment when I decided to do the readathon. I'd seen loads, obviously I see loads of people do them, and I really wanted to do one, and I couldn't find one for that weekend. So I was like, right, I'm just gonna rip the band-aid off, as you might say in America.
There you go.
Plaster, and I just put that tweet out there, and thank God Ashley obviously contacted me, and that's just how I did it, and I'm really happy that I did. So thank you for all your comments. I really appreciate it.
Well, she's also an up-and-coming YouTuber, so the fact that she did the exact same thing, and again, because of the fact that we're trying to connect with other people, it's giving us more of an incentive to actually do things that we want to do, but we don't know if we do, but we're doing them a whole lot quicker. I still remember when I was graduating from high school, there was a song from Baz Luhrmann, and it was called the Sunscreen Song, or Wear Sunscreen, and it's basically a whole bunch of quotes, and one of them that is in there is, do something every day that scares you. And that's a very interesting thing to say, but yeah, it's just great. And again, you telling us that one of your inspirations is Dolly Parton, well, now it just makes so much sense. I mean, she's not a ray of sunshine. For crying out loud, she's an ultraviolet solar flare. That's what Dolly Parton is. But anyway, let's get into the 6th question, and that is, you don't need to go into too much depth, but let's go into talking about some of the new creators that you've discovered and why do you like them so much. Now, when I say new creator, that doesn't necessarily mean a new YouTuber. You could have just found someone that's been on YouTube for 5 years, but that person's new to you. So that's what I'm trying to get at here. So would it be okay if I went first?
Of course.
Sure, go ahead.
So one of the things that Gabby also knows is, one of the things that has started to become a much more dominant presence on my channel is comic books. Now, when I was in grade school, I started collecting them in the 1990s, and that was actually one of the best times for comic books because there were so many amazing stories coming out. But when I got into high school, it sort of drifted away, and I never collected for a while. I still kept all my books, and last summer, my wife and I stayed with her parents, and we went to the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia, and there was a Marvel exhibit. And I actually saw on display comic books that I actually collected, comic books that I had at home. And I was like saying to myself, oh my God, some of these comic books that I've been collecting are now like 20, 25, 30 years old. Some of these comics are things that people are trying to hunt down for themselves. And I said to my wife when I got home, I said, I'm going to start collecting comics again, because I knew that there were so many stories through the 2000s that were praised by critics and comic book fans alike. Some of them were inspirations for some of the movies that we have right now, like Captain America: Civil War. The major Marvel crossover Civil War came out in Marvel Comics in the mid-2000s. It was a phenomenon. People loved it. So I wanted to see what I was missing, and I have just been reading comic books non-stop. The latest story that I'm actually reading, I brought this out. This is an issue of Spider-Man. This is one of the very first comic books that I ever purchased when I was a kid. And I still have it to this very day. And it starts a story called Maximum Carnage because the Venom 2 trailer just recently dropped, and it's called Let There Be Carnage. So this character is going to show up in the films, and this was the beginning of the story that put his character on the map in 1993. So I was just so excited about that. So I have been finding a lot of comic book YouTubers, not necessarily people that review specific stories or issues, but also some people that are talking about what's going on in the comic book industry as a whole right now. It's a very strange time for the industry. Some people thought that it was going bankrupt, especially because of the fact that major distributing companies stopped distributing comics. And then there was some news earlier this week that DC Comics is now working with 2 other distributing companies, and apparently there's going to be new comic books after a couple of weeks with no new stuff now going into comic stores across the country this coming Wednesday. So I'm excited. But the point that I'm making is I found a channel called Comics Explained. And I went to his channel because of the fact that I was looking for some new stories to read. So I wanted to get some, so he gives these great summaries of these awesome stories, and I love how he explains how the story progresses, but how he fanboys at the time. Like his famous line in his reviews is, "Oh man, let me tell you something, guys. Man, let me tell you something." That means you're just getting excited, and I love that. But I kept watching his channel, and I started taking a look at some other stories that I didn't even know existed. There is an amazing Superman story that came out in like 2016. I can't even explain it because it's so complex. But I just said to myself, I got to get my hands on these books. I got to read these books. And it's just, as someone who is a reader, it's great to actually pull out some old comic books in my collection that I haven't read in years and reread them, to buying some new ones and actually reading those for the very first time, and just seeing that there's so much amazing material in these stories. And I think I mentioned this to Gabby. I might have said this on one of her live streams, but there's a lot of booktubers out there that are thinking about going into comic books and starting to read some comic books, and they just don't know where to start. So I feel that if people actually find some of these creators like Comics Explained, they'll start to get an understanding of where the good stories are if they're looking for a place to start. And I love that. I truly do. But of course, finding channels like Joanne's channel, which I found before the pandemic. I will say I found her before the pandemic. It is really nice to see so many people actually sending messages out into the Twitterverse and other forms of social media saying, have you found this YouTuber? Have you seen this YouTuber? Watch this person. Watch this person. So word's getting out. Creators are being found now like never before, and I love that.
And I think that's a fun thing about at least putting the live streams together is I'm just like asking like the Twitterverse, like, who do you want to see? Like, who wants to be involved? Like, I just want to be able to have as many people as possible. And so it's been nice because there's so many names I didn't know existed of people that I just managed to find from someone else, like recommending. Like 2 of the people that I just had on last night came from a recommendation from someone that I originally invited because I knew they had read the Shadowhunter Chronicles books, and they were like, what about this person and this person? And I was like, great, more the merrier.
There you go.
And it's been nice to have like that type of conversation where it's just like people throwing out recommendations and being able to find new people through that. So like all the people that I've had on my channel, like these are people that I would have never watched before, never would have found out about if it wasn't for like having these conversations and things. And all these different Twitter threads of like recommend me some smaller creators who are people that you think are doing interesting things during this time. And I think it's nice to have that and to be able to see that there's a lot of smaller creators that are using this time to be able to put content out there and to be able to support each other. So
great. Anybody specific that you have discovered during the pandemic that you actually just truly appreciate and just want to give a shout out to?
I mean, yeah, everyone I've had on my channel so far, and I'm excited to have more people in the future. I just talked to Haley from Hayden Reads and Andrew from, oh my gosh, her channel name is blinking, Andrew Reads. And just, I mean, like, there's so many people. I think I had Kayla from A Cloud Reading. Like, I mean, the list could go on. It's been so nice to talk with so many different people and to be able to bring the friends that I've had in the community for a few years on to my channel. And it's just, yeah, it's a good time. And I'm excited to hopefully find more creators because I've only done, you know, a handful of these, and I'm hoping to do many more, and I'm hoping to find a lot of smaller creators out of that. So I feel like I'm just scratching the surface in terms of finding new people.
Yeah, because your collabs have definitely been a perfect blend. You obviously have some newer creators that you've recently discovered, but at the same time, you've also got some of your nearest and dearest friends that you've made through the community on these as well. Basically, the subliminal message in what Gabby just said, everybody, was just watch her live shows and you'll find a whole new bunch of creators to appreciate. Plain and simple. Plain and simple.
Yeah. That's the goal. And the goal is to just find other people who are interested too. So my hope is that there's other creators out there watching it who are interested in joining that'll shoot me a message, and that it'll just sort of start to grow and multiply as more people start to find it and more people start to be interested.
Absolutely. Joanne, how about yourself?
Much similar to Gabby, actually. I think kind of back on the previous question as well. I think this time has really helped me to kind of spread my tentacles through YouTube, so I can just find more and more people. Like you go down different paths, and each path you find different groups of booktube friends or booktube communities that, you know, like you think about yourself and say you have to name 5 close little booktube communities, that people in your tight community that you've known, say, from the beginning. Obviously, me and you were connected, Steve, at first on Twitter, and then we had this. You had this idea, and obviously invited me, and then I found Gabby through your channel, and through watching Gabby, I've watched some of her collabs, and I've found some people through your collabs as well, Gabby, but also seen people who I already knew as well through a different connection. So it really is like the perfect time to find so many new people. I mean, to shout out some, definitely you guys, the content across both of your channels, like yours is so unique, Steve. So it covers so many different areas, but your knowledge in each area is still really, really massive. Like, I only have knowledge in one area. I don't think I could spread across Marvel, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Marvel, but I don't have the knowledge there to then talk about it. So it's like that next level, you've got the knowledge across all these different topics and genres, and it's great to know and to wonder what you're talking about on your channel that day. And Gabby, for you, like I said earlier, I do love young adult. It's not one of my favorites, but I do love young adult books. So I do love watching your videos to figure out what you've read, also what your favorites are and where you are. But again, also with your collaborations, different topics each time, finding out like a few of your topics on your collabs I haven't actually read all the series that you've been through, so it's good to get a bit of knowledge to see if it's something I would want to read and to see if it's something I'd be interested in. So that's really what I love about your channel. But I could name people for ages, much like you, Gabby, because there's just so many out there that are really that are producing good content at the moment.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited that one of my very good friends in the community, my friend Cami over at Cami's Corner, in May, we're actually going to be doing 2 different collab series. One's going to be on my channel and one's going to be on her channel. And the best part is, one of us, in regards to each respective collaboration, has the knowledge, and the other one is going to be there to really gain something. So we're going to be talking about the history of comic books on my channel. She does know a little bit, but not as much. But I'm going to be going on to her channel, and we're going to be discussing the evolution of horror films. So I'm really excited about that. I'm not the biggest fan, but I know all the big names. I know the big characters, the big directors, but through that, we're going to learn a lot more. And like, I'm just excited because we're going to go through everything from the 1930s Universal monsters all the way to some of these breakthrough horror films like Get Out, directed by Jordan Peele. So it's going to be so much fun. I'm really excited to tackle this entire history, and I'm just excited to learn. You know, that's what it really is.
That sounds really interesting, that one. I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, I will definitely give you guys all the information in regards to Cammie's channel. She is fantastic. She has actually been on my channel for some live collabs 2 times already, and I'm just looking forward to having her back. So I still cannot get over the fact that even though we are going to go a little bit over the 2-hour mark, we still managed to condense all of this. I really thought we were going to go on for 3 hours, but congratulations to all of us. So this is where we're going to go with the final question, and this one I think is going to be as uplifting as it can get. What are your plans when we finally get back to some kind of normal? What is the first thing that you want to do?
Ooh. I mean, I'm just thinking about, like, it kind of depends on when. I mean, my hope is that I'm able to go back to school in the fall and I'm able to start classes in person. Because for me, like, one of the big things that I'm looking forward to is hopefully in August being able to move back into my dorm and be able to start RA training. And so I'm going to get to be around a whole space of people that I'll be working with. And I feel like that'll be taking up a large part of my time. And so I'll just be happy to get to be, like, back in the city and with all my friends and going to all of my classes and being able to have that schedule again, because I just, like, had so much fun in my fall semester, and I'm sad that my spring semester had to get cut short. So I'm excited to get to go back to school, get to go back to the movies. I remember, like, thinking, like, Black Widow's gonna come out May 1st, and I'll be in the city, and I'll find a movie theater in the city to be able to watch it as they start to get towards the end of my semester. And obviously that didn't happen, but now it's gonna be coming out in November, so hopefully I'll be able to see it in the fall in the city once movie theaters open back up. My friends and I love to go into Naperville because that's where one of our favorite independent bookstores, Anderson's, is. And so hopefully if they open back up soon, to be able to go there. And there's a grilled cheese place that we like in Naperville and a cookie dough place. Like, we have these little dates in Naperville where we have our places that we go to. And so I'd be excited to get to do that with them again, and to just get to see friends and get to go out to small businesses in different places that have been shut down, and hopefully be able to support them if they're able to make it out of this.
I know. Let's hope. Let's hope. Joanne, how about you?
So you might not know this from my channel, but one of the biggest things that I love to do in life is travel. I'm a huge traveler. I have a few bookstore travel vlogs on my channel, but I don't do a lot of travel vlogs on there. It's mainly just books. So when I go away, I always make sure I check out the local bookstores. So you'll see a few on there. But I absolutely love to travel. So I always have my year's travel plans completely set, at least a year in advance, sometimes 2 years in advance. So this year I was supposed to be going to Benidorm, which is in Spain, next weekend. So that's obviously been cancelled. Yeah. We have a huge trip at the beginning of June, a huge group of us. We always go away each year. There's about 8 of us. We're all supposed to be going to Barcelona together. So we're hoping that still might be possible, because it's still, I think it's about 7 or 8 weeks away now. It's like towards the end of June, I believe. So we're still hoping that is happening, but we don't have too much hope, so we'll just have to wait and see. But the biggest trip for me this year is we're going to Florida in September. We're going to Disney World.
Oh, I was there in 2018. I mean, I'm a little bit nervous about Disney World because all the stuff that's been going on with Disney, and the fact that Epcot Center is just a big mess because there's so much construction there and they don't know when they're going to complete it for the new attractions. But oh my goodness, Disney World. You know, I'm so sorry I interrupted you, Joanne, but I just want to let you know that one of the dreams that my wife and I had before we both decided it was time to start a family was to just go back down to Disney World, and more importantly, go to Universal as well, because we had never gone to Harry Potter World. So we wanted to basically act like kids one more time before we actually had a kid of our own. And let me tell you something, before that time, I had not been to Disney World in about 20 years, and my wife had not been down there for about 10 years. And it was one of the best vacations I had taken in my entire life. And I have been to everywhere from Israel to Las Vegas. I've been to so many places, but nothing compared to just being with my wife and going to all of these great things. Like, my wife cried when we saw Hogwarts Castle in Universal Studios.
Yeah.
It was just like a dream come true to walk home with over $300 of merchandise. Like, I had no shame in wasting my money on a Ravenclaw robe. No shame.
Yeah.
I was so glad to have it. But, you know, I have so many pictures on my Facebook page, and I, like, when I'm feeling depressed, I just go to those pictures and I look at all those pictures. It was just such an amazing, amazing vacation. I don't know when I'll get back there, but Joanne, I hope that when you get there, it will be everything that you ever want.
I know, and I'm just so hoping that it'll be sorted by then, and it'll be good, because obviously the Star Wars land is there now, and yeah, that is just my biggest hope. That's the biggest thing for me when I come out of this lockdown period. That's what I need. But more close to home, so my dad, he's actually a high risk person, so he has to stay at home, and he also lives alone, so he's alone. He has his dog, so at least he has his dog, thank God, and I have to deliver his shopping to him, so he can't even go out for shopping, he can't really do anything because he's high risk, because really he'll just be risking himself, so it's his own choice really. And after all this is over, I just can't wait to see him properly, I suppose. I mean, for him, for that situation though, I feel like it's going to be even further away, because, you know, that's when you're talking about vaccines and stuff. Like, it's probably fine for us to go back out into the community because we're not high risk, that you would think, so we can just go out. If we get it, we'll probably be fine. But then it's that's one of the biggest things for me as well, to be able to just get back to normality with him, because it's actually his birthday as well on May the 1st, so it's his birthday next Friday, and I just think it's so awful for him to be sat in his house on his birthday alone. And of course we'll be doing Zooms and birthday parties and all that kind of stuff, but it's not going to be the same. So they're the two main things I think for me when all of this is over.
Yeah, we had 2 little birthday get-togethers already. One of my friends who's a fellow booktuber, Marissa over at Blatantly Bookish, I highly recommend her channel. She and her husband have become 2 of our best in real life friends. As a matter of fact, I wanted to do something exactly like this, but it was going to be a little bit different, because it was going to be about how do you feel about actually, you know, being with your friends all the time and then realize that you can't see them and just be connected, just like spend time with them in real life anymore. Like, what would that be like? So she and her husband both have birthdays within 2 weeks from each other. So we Zoomed with them, and my wife is a May birthday as well. Her birthday is May 12th, and we definitely think that we're going to have to do a Zoom session with friends. My youngest niece is going to be 1 on May 2nd, and my sister-in-law is a big celebrator of first birthdays, and she says, yes, we will postpone it, but, you know, clearly my niece is not going to know what the heck is going on, but, you know, the first birthday, it's a big birthday, and we love when the whole family gets together and sees the birthday girl or boy, and that's just going to be so exciting to do, and we know it will happen soon. But for me, my friend Marissa and her husband, we last Zoomed when it was Marissa's birthday, so we chatted a little bit, and we all agreed that what we need to do is we need to have a true celebration. So we all live near a gargantuan shopping plaza called the Palisades, and as a Funko Pop hunter, it's a Funko Pop hunter's wet dream, because there's a Hot Topic, there's a Barnes & Noble, there's a Box Lunch, there's a GameStop, like every store that a geek like me adores, it's all there. Not to mention that they have a bowling alley, an ice skating rink, a go-kart thing. Like, it's a place where you could truly spend the day. But we all agree that what we need to do is we need to celebrate. We have to go there. We got to go see a movie there. Then we got to eat at one of our favorite restaurants there. And we just need to just walk around and just go shopping. That's what we all just want to do. Just get in our car and just go there all together and just have a fun day. I mean, as another thing that I'm really hoping for, and it sounds like it's going to happen, but when it comes to summer, for me and most Americans here, you know, baseball, I go to baseball games in the summer with my wife, and we don't think we're going to be able to do that. But if there is baseball, you know, regardless of how it's going to be done, I'm just going to be happy to see sports. But yeah, I just want to be with friends. And of course, you know, one of the other things I really want to make sure that I can do is just get a call from my parents and say, come over, we want to see you. Because I truly do miss my parents. I really, really do.
I think it's it is the little things as well that that we probably took advantage of before that you just don't realize. Like just literally just going around to a friend's house for a cup of tea. Like, I know British people love tea, and it might be coffee or whatever it is for you guys. Going to someone's house for a cup of tea is like the normal, and you do it all the time, all week. If you can't suddenly go around to someone's house for a cup of tea, like, what? That's so weird. I can't enjoy a cup of tea by myself. I have to have it with friends. The teapot was made for multiple people.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I've noticed that I'm a big coffee drinker, but I discovered that almost everybody that I know outside of my own immediate family hates coffee. They all drink tea.
Really?
But anyway, ladies, that's actually going to wrap this little collaboration up. Ooh. And I am, once again, extremely grateful that the both of you took this time to do this with me. This was such a informative and uplifting discussion. And like I said, and as the Queen said, you know, we will see each other again. And I'm really believing that that is going to be the case. But what I'm also hoping for is that the three of us, whether it's the three of us together doing one collab or just me working with Joanne or just working with Gabby, I'm hoping that we can all work again on another YouTube project, because this was so great. I really appreciated everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate you having me as well. I've really enjoyed speaking to you both.
Yeah, so everybody, I just want to say thank you all for watching. And as I've been saying in the last recent month, you know, stay safe, keep those hands clean. And I'm looking forward to another episode, which of course will be the Sunday sit down, not just a plain old sit down special, where we have another great topic to discuss, but more importantly, another great YouTuber to discuss it with. I will see you all in the next one. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. If you're new here and want to see more of what my channel has to offer, please click on the link to my last video, or hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of my uploads. Content of all sorts is posted here quite often, so trust me, you do not want to fall behind. I will see you in the comments, and actions speak louder than words.